Hello Booktube, here I am with Planta Sapiens from Paco, Calvo and, or with, I don't know what that with means, Natalie Lawrence. This is a book that was a bit of a roller coaster for me. I had many mixed feelings about it. I heard about it in the open newsletter review from Steve Donaghy. He put the link on some of his old videos, and I just happened to read it and fell in love with the idea because I am biased to like this kind of books that sort of present the natural world from a non-human perspective, or they try to get away from anthropocentrism as much as possible in order to understand beings in their own terms. Anything like that, I have a sweet tooth for that, definitely. And because of that, yes, I was ready to like this book, as I liked many other books like Silent Earth, Other Minds, and Entangled Life. And the author of Entangled Life is, and the author of Other Minds are both cited within this book. And even Merlin Sheldrake from Entangled Life blurbed this book, Planta Sapiens, and said on the back cover, "We are unimaginable without plants, yet surprisingly blind to their powers and behaviors. Planta Sapiens waves science and history into an absorbing exploration of the many ways that plants rise to the challenge of living." The only reason why this book was a bit of a roller coaster is because of the first chapter, which for me could have been removed completely, because it goes from first dedicating too much time and effort to showing the author's fascination for the fact that, like, if you inject certain drugs on a plant, the plant will produce symptoms just like humans do. Somehow that seems fascinating. It's something that Steve also comments in a rather funny way in his review. To then being quite condescending in the last few pages of the first chapter. I'm not gonna read it because that would take too much time, but it's kind of like in the last couple of pages of the first chapter, the author kind of like tries to loop you a little bit, to prepare you for the rest of the book, assuming that you are a person that has like an anthropocentric mind, that you are completely against the idea of plants having any sort of cognition or capacity to feel, and so on and so forth. And it's something that I find often in these kind of books, and it's very annoying because any person that buys this book, that gets this book, is most likely not gonna be some person that like thinks that plants can think is unthinkable. So having to read a couple of pages of like the author basically telling you that you have a zoocentric mind, and that you will have to leave your preconceptions aside to read the book. It's like, stop preparing me and bring it on. You know what I mean? So that was definitely annoying, and it made me not like the book for a while, but the book just kept getting better and better and better, and towards the end of the book I just ended up loving it. Not only for the endless evidence that is cited here, that plants can remember, that they can feel, that they can show compassion toward each other, that they having like the capacity to move, and it's more like this book not only doesn't so much show the things that plants have, as how our lack to perceiving those qualities has made us overlook them as beings with consciousness, as beings with capacities, with personhood that is as complex as ours and that of other animals. I don't have a lot more to say about this book. I think you should read it. I'm gonna read just a page so that you have an idea of how, like, the writing style, the pace, and also the tone in which this book is written. But I think that will be all. So this is in chapter 7, is what is it like to be a plant? In 1974, the philosopher Thomas Nagel asked, what is it like to be a bat? This strange question stimulated decades of tongue-in-cheek additions to the long-standing conversations about the nature of consciousness. Why would we wish to know about the interior world of bats? But he had good reasons to consider what it is like to be a bat. They are like us, mammals, and not so distantly related to humans that the idea of them having rich subjective experiences would be impossible to imagine. But on the other hand, their mode of being also their mode of being is also radically different from ours. As Nagel puts it, anyone who has spent some time in an enclosed space with an excited bat knows what it is like to encounter a fundamentally alien form of life. Nagel argued that if there was something that it was like to be a creature, then that creature must have some consciousness. Subjective experience equates to consciousness at some level. Rats, whales, antelopes all have specific kinds of internal experiences tied to their individual ways of perceiving and being in the world. But the question also poses a challenge. How can we, with our bipedal, tactile, or vision-oriented existence, know what it is like to be a hyperactive airborne insectivore with webbed digits that sees through sonar? We might accept that there is a subjective bad experience, but the bridge to understanding that is long and tenuous. Picturing what it is like to be a plant, that is an even more extreme leap of imagination. So much so that many argue that plants have no subjective experience at all. This is sort of like a point of inflection in the book, where it goes from showing you the evidence to starting to make an argument with that evidence, what are the conclusions to be drawn. And the weight of the evidence is equally matched by the awareness of the lack of our capacity to understand those beings, and I think that is like extremely important. I think that the way we frame a question is incredibly important as well. Here is chapters on like the nature of names and meaning. This is not just science. This is often I get annoyed at scientists trying to do philosophy, but this is well done. And the reframing of that question, rather than asking, do plants have intelligence, and therefore ignoring certain premises, assumptions that we might make, like intelligence equals having neurons, intelligence equals being able to answer these kind of questions or resolve these kind of problems. With the evidence that we have, and knowing that they already have something like that, rather than bring on a question that will be fueled by our biases and interest in exploring the environment carelessly, asking, how does it feel like to be a plant, is already assuming that they have certain consciousness, some sort of consciousness, which at this point, with the evidence at least that this book presents, seems rather way more plausible to me than otherwise. So because of all of that, the book is certainly groundbreaking, and it could, especially in the field of ethics, right? And I kind of fear the conclusions that some people will draw from this, because even Steve at some point in the review asks, who will write Plant Liberation? There's a chapter here called Plant Liberation, and also what will we vegans eat if plants also happen to be people? Well, I don't think the anti-speciesist movement was never about stopping the killing of sentient beings. I think it was about stopping the unnecessary killing of sentient beings and the careless use of an environment that is shared with other beings of a symbiotic whole. That is to say that this is important to change the way we modify our environment and interact with the beings around us. It doesn't mean that we have to suddenly go into a panic room and not interact with our environment at all. It just means that we have to offer a different kind of consideration, because a being that has consciousness is a being that, as it's pointed out here at some point, referring to another book as well, is a being that has dignity of some kind or another. And treating any sentient being, any being that really keeps the structure of the symbiotic whole alive for us to enjoy and live through, should be treated with a certain amount of dignity. And I think that that is the inevitable conclusion that books like Planta, Sapiens and books like Animal Liberation in the Peter Singer side bring us to. I highly recommend it. I think if you are not familiar with the subject, if this is not something you've thought about, it will definitely blow your mind. And if it's something that you've thought about, you will find many arguments for intuitions that you already had, and you will enjoy the read because this was more readable than other books I've read on the genre, except to it in the first couple of chapters. I hope if you have read it, let me know, and if you read it, let me know, and have a nice day. I'll see you on the other side.